In this section, you will hear a conversation between a travel agency representative and a customer discussing the customer's recent vacation to Melbourne. First, you have half a minute to look at questions 110. Now listen and answer questions 110.
Good morning. This is Talia from Parrot Bay Travel Agency. I hope I'm not calling too early, but I'd like to ask you a few questions about your recent trip to Melbourne, if you have a few minutes.
Yes, this is Robert. Sure, I'd be happy to help.
Wonderful, thank you. I see you've visited Melbourne before. Was this your first time there?
No, actually, this was my third visit to the city.
I see. What would you say was the best part of your time in Melbourne?
Well, I really enjoyed seeing the diverse wildlife, and there are so many great sights to see. But I have to say, the weather was the most impressive part for me.
The weather is certainly one of Melbourne's highlights. Of the sites you visited that were part of our tour, which was your favorite?
I started with the theater, which was beautifully designed. But the town hall was definitely the highlight. It's such an important part of Melbourne's history.
Yes, the town hall is a beloved landmark. And how about the dining experience? Did you enjoy the food?
Absolutely. As an international city, there was such a wonderful variety. I could find any type of cuisine I wanted, from seafood to burgers.
That's great to hear. Did you travel to Melbourne by plane or train?
I flew there. I had considered taking the train, but decided that flying would be quicker.
Okay, and if you don't mind me asking, what is your age range?
Ha! I wish I was still under 2020, but actually, I just turned 41 last week.
Well, happy belated birthday. Did you treat yourself to a first-class flight?
No, I'm more of a mid-range traveler. I grew up in a low-income household, so I'm used to watching my budget.
I see. And was this a business trip or a personal vacation?
It was a bit of both. I used to travel there a lot for work, but this time it was purely for tourism.
Interesting. And what is your occupation?
I'm primarily a computer programmer, but I also write for a travel magazine on the side.
Wow, you do keep busy. Was your hotel accommodation satisfactory?
Yes, it was a good value. Staying in the city center can get quite expensive, so I was glad to find a nice hotel at a reasonable price.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to answer my questions. I'm happy to hear you enjoyed your trip to Melbourne.
Not a problem at all. Take care.
That's the end of part 1. You have half a minute to check your answers.
In this section, you will listen to an assistant discussing the highlights of the local community. First, you will have time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Thank you all for joining us today. We are excited to share our plan for improving the local area as we prepare for the influx of tourists in the summer. First, I'll provide a quick overview of the key points of interest for those who may not be familiar with the area, and then I'll share details about the recent improvements. One of the highlights is the Science Museum, located on the corner of St. George Road. If you haven't visited yet, I highly recommend checking it out before the busy season. It's an absolutely spectacular facility, with a flight simulator that you can try. Just west of the Science Museum, You'll find the National History Museum, which is another must-see destination. Each floor of the museum is dedicated to a different era in our nation's history, and there are special exhibits for children with interactive games and educational activities. For those looking for parking, there is a car park available at the intersection of Queen Street and South King Street, with standard hourly and daily rates. The shopping mall is the best place to find souvenirs, although it can get quite crowded during peak times. You can access the mall either by taking the tube or through the entrance on Timber Road, just south of Cornwell Road. The area is also home to a primary school across the street from the shopping mall, where students often take field trips and engage in guided tours of the local landmarks. I hope this overview has given you a good understanding of the key attractions and amenities in the area.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have half a minute to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
First, let me share the updates we've implemented to enhance the visitor experience in our area. When you arrived at the car park this morning, you may have noticed the additional signage we've added to help prevent confusion and ensure smooth traffic flow. Moving on, we're excited to share that we've constructed a brand new playground for the primary school in line with our commitment to giving back to the community. The state-of-the-art equipment includes swings, a small climbing wall, and an obstacle course, providing a fun and engaging space for the students. Turning our attention to the Science Museum, we've introduced free information resources to help visitors stay informed about upcoming IMAX showings, as well as natural wonders like meteor showers and eclipses. Similarly, the National History Museum has expanded its facility, adding a new wing to accommodate the large crowds drawn to exhibits like the Civil War and the Inventions timeline. This increase in space will provide a more calm and comfortable experience for visitors. Finally, we've addressed the issue of overcrowding at the mall entrance from the tube station by adding an additional entry point at the other end of the platform. This should help disperse the foot traffic and make it easier for people to access the mall. These are the major improvements we've made to enhance the overall experience for our growing number of visitors. We welcome any questions, comments, or concerns you may have about these changes. Please feel free to reach out to me or any other board member if you have any further feedback.
That's the end of part 2. You have half a minute to check your answers.
In this section, you will hear a conversation between a tutor and two students, Jane and Mark, discussing their senior thesis project assignments. First, you have half a minute to look at questions 21-23. Now listen and answer questions 21-23. All right, I understand you both received your project assignments for your senior thesis today. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. We have to submit our topics for the thesis next week.
But how can they grade us this soon? That seems very quick.
Don't worry. The due date next week is just for feedback, not a final grade. The teachers just want to review your topic ideas and provide you with some guidance.
Okay, I see. So we need to come up with our topics first. And then what's the next step?
Well, once you have your topic selected, you'll need to think about how you want to approach the research. You'll need to decide on the best research methods to use for your study.
And what about the results section? How do we handle that part?
For the results, I can provide you with some sample data from past projects, and you can practice writing up the results and drawing conclusions. This will help prepare you for when you conduct your own experiment.
That sounds really helpful, actually. Getting that practice ahead of time will be useful.
Yeah, it may be extra work, but it will definitely make the actual project easier in the long run.
Exactly right. All right, let's get started with that sample data, and you can work on summarizing the results and conclusion in about 25 minutes. Remember to pay close attention to the time limit. Before listening to the rest of the conversation, you have half a minute to look at questions 24 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 24 to 30. All right, let's talk about the details of your senior thesis project. I understand you both received your assignments today. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. We have to submit our topic ideas for the thesis next week.
But how can they grade us this soon? That seems very quick.
Don't worry. The deadline next week is just for feedback, not a final grade. The teachers want to review your topic ideas and provide some guidance.
Okay, I see. So after we select our topics, what's the next step?
Well, once you have your topic, you'll need to think about the best research methods to use for your study.
And how should we approach the results section?
I can provide you with some sample data from past projects, and you can practice writing up the results and drawing conclusions. This will help prepare you for your own experiment.
That sounds really helpful. Getting that practice ahead of time will be useful.
Yeah, it may be extra work, but it will definitely make the actual project easier.
Exactly right. All right, let's get started with that sample data, and you can work on summarizing the results and conclusion in about 25 minutes. Remember to pay close attention to the time limit. That's the end of part 3. You have half a minute to check your answers.
In this section, you will listen to a lecturer discussing techniques for removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. First, you will have time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
The key points to consider when creating advertising materials are the geographic area of your target market, the method of communication, and the use of sensory elements to create a memorable experience. Limiting your advertising to the geographic area of your target market is important, as customers are more likely to choose a product that is closer and more convenient to them. The method of communication, whether it's radio ads, TV commercials, flyers, or word of mouth, should be carefully selected to reach your target audience effectively. While the visual presentation of ads is important, the use of sound and smell can also significantly enhance the customer's memory and experience. For example, associating a product with a familiar scent can create a strong emotional connection and increase its desirability. When advertising digital products, it's common for advertisers to use a single flexible layout that can be easily updated as new versions are released. This allows for a consistent brand identity while accommodating the dynamic nature of the product. The ultimate goal of advertising is to evoke the right feelings in potential customers, whether it's through sensory experiences, intellectual appeal, or other means. The customer's reaction to the ad is crucial, as a positive reaction may not necessarily translate into a purchase. As a company expands its market, the same marketing strategies used in a smaller campaign may not work as effectively. Factors such as cultural and linguistic differences must be considered when tailoring advertising for different regions. Adapting the message and medium to the local market is essential for success. The choice of advertising medium, such as print ads in newspapers or magazines, can also significantly impact the target audience. Advertisers must carefully consider the demographics and preferences of the intended audience to ensure their message resonates effectively. In summary, successful advertising requires a deep understanding of your target market, the appropriate use of sensory elements, adaptability to changing market conditions, and a strategic approach to selecting the right advertising medium and message.
That is the end of part 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.